Hello, everyone. Welcome to the StriveScan Virtual College Exploration Program in partnership with the Colleges That Change Lives. We have Bard here today who's about to give you a quick information session. For everyone in the audience, before we get started, just a couple of quick announcements. You can type your questions to our panelists at any time by hitting that Q&A button on your screen. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. And we just have a couple more sessions through the rest of today, through this evening. If you want to check out the full schedule at strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL, it's not too late to sign up. And if you want to check out the video for this session or any of the other ones, you can find them on that same website. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Colric and our team from BARD. To get started here, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dan. Hello, everybody. My name is Colric Greathouse. I am Assistant Director of Admission and West Coast Coordinator for Bard College. And I am joined by two incredible students who also happen to be tour guides in our Office of Admission, Nike and Kwa, and we'll just do some brief, introductory information. So I've been with the college now for about 6 years. I use he, him, and they, them pronouns. And I've worked in residence life. So I lived on campus prior to working in the Office of Admission. I worked with our peer counselor staff doing programming and things like that on our campus. And then I moved over to the Office of Admission and came out to California to work with students primarily from the West Coast. And Nike, since you're next on my screen, I will pass the mic to you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Renike, but I go by Nike. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a current junior, and I do I major in political studies. A couple things I'm involved with besides working for the Office of Admissions on campus. I also intern for our Title IX office. I'm on the women's volleyball team, so I'm definitely here for questions, anything about athletics. I'm also in a couple affinity groups. The Black Student Organization, Women of Color United, and I am recently now a chair of an inclusion and diversity committee working towards and in athletics. I'll throw it to Kwa.
Hey everyone, my name is Kwa. I am also a current junior at Bard. I'm studying economics and finance, and I also use they, them as well as he, him pronouns. I am originally from Edmond, Oklahoma, and on campus I am a peer counselor, also known as PC, which is equivalent to an RA at other universities. I'm also the head of the Asian Student Organization. So this is just a few things I'm a part of on campus. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we are going to start with just a little bit of an overview. We'll kind of get the slideshow piece of the presentation out of the way and mostly use our time to have some Q&A with you all. So as you're thinking about questions, feel free to drop those into the Q&A section that should be open and ready for you to go. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can get the slideshow party started. Let me just, here we go. All right, so obviously we've already done introductions. We have that piece there. If this will minimize, go, okay. So just a bit of an overview. So Bard is a private college for the public good. And so what that means is that as an institution, we're doing work at a local, national, and even global level to make a positive difference in ways that are environmental, in ways that are social. And not only are we doing that work as an institution, but we are providing opportunities for students to engage in that work. And that is found throughout the academic and the social experience at the college. Civic engagement is definitely a huge, it's a huge part of our institutional culture. It's a part of our identity. It's right in our mission. We're really interested in the engaged liberal arts, as it were. And so two of the major examples that I like to share about that work are, one, we have 2 farms and an orchard on campus supplying more than 20,000 pounds of produce annually to our dining hall and community farm stands, as well as around 7,000 pounds of that produce being donated to local food banks and shelters in our area. And so that's an example of the environmental impact that we're looking to have, as well as social in our community. Another example, seemingly unrelated, but I promise I will explain how those two are related. We run the largest degree granting prison education program in the country called the Bard Prison Initiative, or BPI. And that's a program where incarcerated individuals get their associate's or bachelor's degree from Bard. They're taught by Bard faculty, they're tutored by Bard students. We can talk more about it later, but there is a documentary out about that program that you are certainly welcome and encouraged to check out. But the reason I share those two, seemingly totally different examples is that those were both student programs. So those were started by Bard students, largely run by Bard students. The prison education program was done initially as a tutoring program and then grew into a full-fledged degree seeking or degree granting program. And so we'd like to sort of highlight right off the bat who we are and why we do what we do, as well as highlighting that some of the most significant programs that have happened on our campus are as a direct result of student work. So the image that you see here on your screen is just our little 1,000-acre wood in the Hudson Valley in New York. Our campus is about an hour and a half north of New York City. It's about 90 miles as the crow flies. Our campus sits right on the Hudson River. That's the body of water you see right there at the top of the image. And that is the view of the Catskill Mountains just beyond our campus. This is not a dramatization. It's not a drill. This is really what it looks like. We have lots of opportunities to go hiking and spend time outdoors on our campus, but then you're only a train ride away from Broadway shows and all the excitement that New York City has to offer. That central cluster that you see here right in the middle of campus is really where the bulk of the activity goes on. So we've got residence hall buildings, our Office of Admission, Campus Center, the dining hall, the library, several classroom buildings, as well as residence hall spaces. On the north end of campus here, that's the second historic estate that makes up campus. So that building may look familiar to some of you who have seen maybe the Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, or MIT's library, the Guggenheim Museum in Spain. Our Performing Arts Center was designed by Frank Gehry, and he worked with the same acoustician who did the Disney Concert Hall in LA. So it's a full-fledged opera house as well as a secondary theater. We've also got residential communities on the north end of campus there, and that's one of our farms. You see the single-acre organic farm. To the south end of campus, our newest addition is Montgomery Place. That's the second farm and orchard. The same family who has run that farm for generations runs it today. We just own the land, and that's provided us a lot of opportunities to expand our investment in sustainable agriculture, as well as to do some restorative work in those buildings with the priceless art collection that's there. And so it's really, I think it highlights the interdisciplinary nature of the Bard experience. So from there, I'll move on to kind of the academic experience within our campus. The sort of center of the Bard network is our Annandale campus. And I'm definitely gonna lean on my co-hosts here, Nike and Kwa, to just spend a little bit of time breaking these down, because this really is the core of learning at Bard. So we have the 5 pillars, as you can see here: language and thinking, first year seminar, citizen science, moderation, and senior project. And those final 2, moderation and senior project, are unique to Bard. So you won't find these programs anywhere else. But the first 3 we'll talk about are also the core of the first year curriculum. So first year students spend a little more time on campus during their first year than any other year. And there are a lot of really great reasons for that. The language and thinking program is 3 weeks prior to the start of the fall semester. And it really is not only an orientation to our campus, but an orientation to the classroom and the academic experience at Bard. And so, Kwa, would you mind just kind of talking a little bit about your language and thinking experience and touch a little bit on advising at Bard?
Yeah, for sure. So language and thinking is very much like a little like intro into Bard as the college it is. And so it is a pass or fail program where students are kind of on campus for this 3-week program, doing intensive reading and writing in the classroom. So getting a feel of how Bard classrooms are like with the 12 to 15 students, very much a discussion and seminar style way of teaching rather than lecture style. So very much introducing the students to how Bard functions academically throughout the year, but also getting students more comfortable onto campus, as they are really the only students on campus at this time. And so, a lot of first year students are joining the activities and the events that are directed for them, but also, getting comfortable with the campus, as we do have a pretty large campus, as well as getting, more familiar with the resources and different, buildings that we have on campus, stuff like that. And so also by the end of your language and thinking program, you'll be matched with an advisor, depending on what you mark down for what you're interested in. Of course, you can always change your advisor, but at this time you will, be given an advisor depending on whatever you marked as your intended major. And so, yeah, just a really good time to get, comfortable with the campus. For me personally, is a really great transitional period coming from, high school, also coming from abroad, to have that time, just to get comfortable and to be more aware of like where I am, as well as before the semester starts, getting some skills of this is how classes run, and this is, the type of papers that we expect at BARD before the actual semester starts and before your GPA is affected. So I think it was a great time to really prepare the students, to start.
Perfect, thank you. Oop, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. I think, okay, great, we're good. Sorry, my screen went a little wonky for a second. Thank you, class. So that leads into the second academic tradition and the one class that we give you at BARD. So you have a ton of autonomy in terms of how you satisfy your requirements throughout the BARD experience, but the one class that's given to you is first year seminar. And that is a 2-semester course. It is traditionally graded, unlike language and thinking and citizen science, which we'll talk about in a moment. Kwa mentioned that those are both pass-fail. And so a little bit different in terms of the curriculum. But first year seminar is really an expanded great books course. So we expand beyond that Western white canon. We want to read more than just, dead white men in our academic experience. And so, yeah, Nikkei, do you want to talk about your FISM experience and the questions, the sort of central themes that are the focus of those 2 semesters?
Yes, so for my FISM experience, so basically for my FISM, I don't know if it was mentioned, but it's taught by almost every professor has to teach like a section of FISM. So you will be getting kind of like in their given time at BARD. So like you'll be getting like very different readings of books each semester. So my first semester I had a human rights professor, and my second semester I had a German literature professor. And the books kind of BARD loves to center their curriculum around kind of like big unanswerable questions, but that do like drive like thought and drive like academics in general. So for my year, for me and Kwaja, it was like freedom that was afforded to you, and I believe freedom that was given. And I really appreciate it because not just kind of like being a graded books course, but also gives you a really good introduction to the learning commons, because you have to write at least 5 papers per semester, at least my class did. And having kind of that connection with them makes it easier to ask for help, because it is kind of difficult to ask for help in college sometimes because you do want to be so independent. So kind of already having that built-in connection really like builds confidence and makes it easier, to ask for help later. Also, I kind of want to highlight in my experience, my FISM class wanted to spend more time reading, oh my God, we wanted to spend more time reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, instead of like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And like nothing against Mary Shelley, but like personally, our class wanted to focus on a little more topics that kind of touch us all. So we were able to kind of have a conversation and shift our schedule in order to like really make sure that we are getting everything we want out of it. And I think that's just a testament to BARD's professors, that like they're not just there to like teach you then leave, they actually want you to enjoy all the experiences that you're having.
Thank you, Nikkei. And I think that actually highlights a point that I meant to mention about language and thinking, but also that we'll talk about as related to citizen science. You actually said it earlier in a session today, Nikkei, talking about the focus on equity and how not all students are coming to their BARD experience from the same place. And so the language and thinking program, first year seminar as well, and citizen science are really meant to help bring everybody onto the same page so we can sort of have a common vocabulary and a common understanding of what it means to engage in a liberal arts education like this. And the same goes for the STEM fields. So our third pillar of the academic traditions and the final piece of the first year curriculum is citizen science. And it really is a foundational scientific literacy program that is designed to help students who want to major in biology or chemistry or physics to connect just as readily with a STEM curriculum as students who want to major in foreign languages or in studio art or theater, and who aren't necessarily interested in studying the sciences intensively. But we do believe that sort of a means of responsible citizenship is having at least a base level of scientific literacy and understanding. And so our program is actually built into 4 different strands. So those are communication, community action, education, and experimentation or laboratory work. And so you really get to engage with citizen science in a way that works for you, rather than having STEM forced on you in a set of general education requirements, so to speak. The structure of that sort of mirrors the language and thinking program. It's about 2.5 weeks before the start of the spring semester. It happens in January. And so, Quad, you want to talk a little bit about your citizen science experience?
Yeah, so my year was actually the first year we were trying out the 4 different strands or divisions, depending on the students' interests. So right there, I think that really speaks to the amount of input that students have on certain programs, like citizen science. And so I decided to join the community action strand. And so what that looked like was I attended classes where we, critically analyzed certain science journals and articles, but we also worked in the labs doing research on the water samples. The overarching theme the year that we were doing citizen science was water. So we had taken water samples from the local communities around us, their drinking supplies, and we tested them for estrogenic activity, as well as other components in their water. And basically by the end of citizen science, because I was part of the community action strand, we met with the community leaders and we spoke to them about the different, findings that we found in their water supply, whether or not they should be worried in the future about the cleanliness of their water, and stuff like that. And so very much applicable, types of works that you'll be doing in the real world if you are a science major, but any other major as well. So being able to effectively communicate the types of works that we're doing, also being able to adequately take, important messages and information from these certain articles and texts and journals that we were reading from. Obviously what we're living through now, it's more than ever apparent that we should be, have some fundamental level of science literacy, but this is basically a program that promotes science literacy among all of our students. So not just the science students that are, gaining this information, but also all students, so that they can go out in the world and effectively communicate this type of information when we need it most. And so also during this time is MLK Day, where there is a day where we dedicate, the entire day for MLK activities, panels, stuff like that. There won't be any class that day, but usually students are really excited to be joining these events and the type of programs that we have on this day. So yeah, I think that's just like the overall science literacy that you gain from citizen science. And yeah, I think personally it was really impactful for me to not only gain experience in the labs and doing research, as I'm not a science major, but also being able to be in a classroom setting with other students where they're contributing to the conversation that I haven't really considered before with my educational background. So yeah, there's really fascinating conversations that we have in classroom that I think are really beneficial for all students. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So that really sums up the first year curriculum. The final 2 academic pillars happen a little bit later in the BARD experience. And so as you can see here, those are moderation and senior project. So moderation is BARD's unique way of having students declare their major. So at a lot of institutions, you have to go to the registrar's office or fill out a form online in order to declare your major and then get access to a set of classes within that field of study. But at Bard, we don't want you to have to go through that process over and over again until you find your right fit. And so the idea is that you have access to everything. You're taking classes across all 4 divisions, which we'll go over in a minute, in order to satisfy your distribution requirements. And then you take a few classes in a field that you're interested in, and you start to look toward moderation. So the earliest that that can happen is at the end of your sophomore year. So you have 3 semesters to explore and take classes in a variety of fields of study. And then you select a panel of faculty for your moderation panel. And it's kind of a pitch, honestly, in terms of what you want to study. There's a little bit of writing involved, and Nike will break that down a little bit more for you. But the idea is like you're driving the bus on this experience. This is your opportunity to really explore and defend what it is that you want to study and why, but you choose the faculty who are sitting on your panel. So Nike, do you want to take it away with moderation?
Yeah, so like Corbett said, there's basically always a writing component. So everyone has to write 2 papers at least. So the first one would be what brought you to the major, so why you chose that at Bard. And then your second one is future, so what a possible senior project might look like, or what you want to do with that major and how that might help you towards writing your senior project or other classes you might take. For political studies specifically, I had to write a 7-page paper that was revolving around an article that was given. It really depends on what you're doing and what major you go into. For example, dance majors, I know they had to choreograph a piece that they weren't allowed to be in. Music, like anyone who like does like the music major, not necessarily the conservatory, because I don't know too much on that, and I think they had to have some type of small composition. It kind of just depends on what you do. I really appreciated my senior project because, or not my senior project, sorry, my moderation, because even though it was virtual, I know like the same care and everything went into it as well. It was like a really good time to kind of like talk about what a senior project might look like for me, what like where, if I could go, like where to study abroad to, what kind of classes to take, as well as just to mention there are 3 outcomes of moderation. You can get deferred, which means like maybe like give it a year, give it time, maybe you might want to do something else, or maybe like this is something you really want to do, just kind of like rethinking it. You can get rejected, but that barely happens. It's if you go in there with your Instagram feed trying to moderate into photography, like maybe it's curated, maybe it's cute, but like, you know, it's not necessarily what they're looking for. And then you obviously get accepted, which means like you're like that's what you want to do. And I always like to highlight being deferred or being rejected doesn't mean it's the end of your time at Bard. It just means you're destined to do something else, and your professors know that. Like you might get deferred if you go into like film or math, talking so much about another subject that you really are passionate about. They're just like, maybe you should try something else. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, my unmute button was popping up. So yes, that's that's sort of moderation in a nutshell. And then the final piece is what Nike mentioned. In moderation, you look ahead to senior project, but you don't necessarily spend as much time in moderation, or you definitely don't spend as much time in moderation as you do in senior project. And so for the final tradition, senior project is a year-long passion project and a professional caliber contribution to your field. So you may spend an entire year writing a script for a musical, or working on some scientific work with your faculty member, or doing a language translation, or building an art installation. It really depends on what you want to study, but you spend a whole year working on it and you get credit for it. So you actually get 4 credits in the fall and in the spring. And if you finish the rest of your academic work by the spring semester, then senior project may be your only class that semester, which is kind of exciting for some students. So obviously this is a look into the future, Quad, but do you want to break down a little bit of senior project, maybe what you heard from others, what you're thinking about? Give us a little sneak peek.
Yeah, for sure. So senior projects is basically a culmination of all the classes and skills you have built throughout your college experience here at Bard. And it's just a very large project that you'll be working on your entire senior senior year, really showcasing all the skills and all the information and classes you have been through. And, very much a passion project for a lot of students because, they're very passionate for whatever major they're majoring in. And this is a way to, very much show show off their, whatever they want to show off, if that, depending on their major. So a dance major will, create an entire performance, and they're going to show that performance during the senior, project showcase. Whereas, maybe an economics major will be writing an entire, graduate thesis. And so it could look like an 80 to 100 page thesis over an economic issue or economic theory, whatever it is. And so really depending on your major, it will look entirely different, but it's, very much a passion project to where you'll be spending on your entire senior year. So a very large passion project that you can, either show to your graduate school that you're applying to show that, you can already do the work. But also it's great for employers as well to show that, you have that capacity to work on an entirely huge project like this the entire year. And yeah, so I think I'm obviously not a senior yet, and I haven't really been working on it, but I am in the process right now of speaking with my advisor, of coming up with different senior project ideas and kind of the direction I want to go with. But I've, been honored to see some senior projects before. It's a very, hectic, but also an amazing time to be seeing all the different senior projects that are coming out at the end of the year. Yeah, I think it's amazing to see all the different types of works that all the students are doing their entire senior year. So very much a passion project, in the sense that students are really, happy about the work that they're doing. And obviously having gone through moderation projects, it's a very intentional process leading up to the senior project so that you're doing the type of work that you want to do, as well as showing that whatever you've been studying is something that you're really passionate for, and that you can write it all in a huge project like this. And yeah, so definitely something I'm looking forward to. But as of right now, I'm a little intimidated by it just because of how long it is, but preparing myself and just getting ready to write it. So yeah.
Thank you. And I think you highlight something really important that I want to bring up, which is that the community aspect of all of this work. We work hard at Bard, but we also celebrate, even at the end of senior project, there's a huge barbecue, there's champagne, and your faculty come together and celebrate your accomplishment. Students celebrate after moderation, but even right at the beginning, I can't believe we left out one of the most important celebrations. And that is after the end of language and thinking, we have a matriculation ceremony, which is a more formal experience, but then that leads into the after party. Nike, I'm gonna let you say it.
My favorite, matriculation. Oh my God, it's my favorite time.
So we really do, we know how to celebrate each other. We know how to, to connect in a community and rally around not only our triumphs, but when we struggle as well. And so I think that's something that's really important to note. So those are the academic traditions. So I mentioned before, the students study across 4 different divisions at Bard, and they're really loosely based around, and you'll see the quote here from our president, they're based around faculty interest. So we don't force our faculty or our students into specific boxes. We really do loosely build the curriculum around what they're interested in. So our faculty are really teaching around their own passions and their own work, and even personal interests sometimes. So those are the arts, language and literature, STEM, and social studies, as you see here, as well as our interdivisional programs and concentrations. And more specifically, we won't go through all of them individual, obviously, but you can sort of see the different fields of study here within the various divisions. So we have a lot of options in terms of what you might study at Bard. And this is all obviously available on our website as well. So just a little bit of Bard by the numbers, just so you kind of have an idea. We have a very strong contingency of international students. Around 20% of our students come from outside the US, representing 28 different countries. More than 40% of our students identify as students of color. About 18% of our students, as you can see, are first gen, and a quarter of our students are Pell eligible. And so we give out a significant amount of financial aid every year. It's important to note that financial aid at Bard is need-based. That's a really strong philosophy we have. We don't believe in merit aid. We believe in reserving funding for students who need it most. And so with that, we've given out millions in aid in the last year alone. In terms of academics and sort of numbers around campus, we have pretty small class sizes. Our student faculty ratio, which is actually the same as our student to club ratio, is 9-to-1. You saw the 4 divisions before. We have over 50 academic programs. We also have a wide variety of residence halls on our campus, probably more than you would usually see. And those for first year students range in size from 9 to 99. So we really take your preferences into account when it comes to living on campus. If you want a smaller community, if you want to be a part of a larger hustle and bustle building, or somewhere in the middle, we take those preferences into account. We also hand match roommates. Fun fact, I used to do that process. So we have every student coming in fill out a housing profile with preferences and interests and things like that, and then we match you with a roommate based on those commonalities. Another thing to mention, study abroad is really popular at Bard. We also have a lot of internship opportunities. About half of our students have an international experience, and that could range from a language intensive over the course of a week or 2 weeks, which usually involves a service component, all the way up to a semester abroad, which typically happens during the junior year, or potentially an entire year abroad. We actually have a program with our campus in Berlin, Germany, called the Begin in Berlin program, where first year students can do their curriculum on that campus and then come back to finish in New York. So yeah, that's a little bit of that information. We've hinted at this obviously a couple of times, but I want to make sure we highlight the overall Bard network. So as I said before, our campus in Annandale, New York is really the center of the wheel. And then the rest of the network spokes off from there. We talked about the Bard Prison Initiative earlier, a project that was started by Bard students and students still participate in today. But we also have a network of high school early colleges across the country, which are public high schools where students get their diploma as well as their associate's degree from Bard, which they can take anywhere. Many of them transfer that to Bard in New York, but they can bring that degree to any institution they like. We also have international programs. So I mentioned our campus in Berlin, Germany. We also have the largest Russian American education collaboration with the Smolny Honors College at the University of St. Petersburg. We have the largest Palestinian American education collaboration with Al-Quds University in the West Bank. We're co-founders with the Central European University, which just moved to Vienna, Austria, for the Open Society University Network, or OSUN. And that is essentially a network that provides us with more resources to bring the liberal arts to places where it is difficult to access. And we have a partnership with the American University of Central Asia in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, as well as programs in China. So study abroad is certainly not limited to those programs, but those are definitely a wonderful gateway if you're interested in getting involved in more international academic work. So last slide here is just ways to apply to us. So we are on the Common App. You can apply early or regular decision. It's really up to you how you want to do that. The majority of our applications definitely come through regular decision. We also have a process called the Bard Entrance Exam, which completely bypasses the traditional application methods. So that is a series of college level essays. The questions are written by faculty. You submit those, your answers to those. It's lots and lots of writing. I won't shy away from that. I want to say it's something like 10,000 words in total. It's a lot. But if you choose to apply that way, your exam is graded by Bard faculty. And if you make a B+ or better, you're admitted to the college pending submission of your final high school transcript. Now, that was initially a means of application that was meant to expand access to a Bard education. It was free. There was no application fee. There's still no application fee there. And you essentially get to demonstrate your readiness for college by submitting college level work. If you didn't have a traditional academic experience in high school, or you just don't want to apply through those regular channels. And then we also have the immediate decision plan, which requires you to apply by the early deadline, which for us is November 1st. You can do that either early action or early decision. It's up to you. During a normal year, when we're not in a global pandemic, you'd come to campus, you would attend a seminar with faculty, you go on a campus tour, you interview with one of our admission counselors, we review your application that day, and you get a decision the next business day. So this usually happens either Friday or Saturday, the first 3 weekends of November, and then we give you a decision that next Monday. This year, it's going to be online for obvious reasons, but that is another opportunity to really have an in-depth application experience with BARD. So that's our slideshow. I want to use the rest of our time to do a little Q&A. So I'm going to moderate, and we'll just kind of take turns answering questions as it makes sense. So our first question here is, at what point in time at BARD does a student have to declare their major, and are double majors possible? So the moderation process that we talked about before, at the earliest, it happens at the end of sophomore year. But some students choose to, or maybe they get deferred because they need to spend a little more time with the material, they will moderate at the beginning of their junior year, sometimes later in junior year, but it's typically end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year. And great question that actually leads us right into the double or joint major. So if you want to do a double or a joint major, which is definitely possible and happens quite often on campus, you have 2 moderations. And if you're doing a double major, you'd have 2 senior projects. So you'd want to start those things sort of alternately, I guess. So you would moderate into your first field of study, ideally at the end of sophomore year, and then moderate into the second field of study at the beginning of junior year. If you're doing a double major, you'll do 2 senior projects, and you'll start one toward the end of your junior year and then start the other senior year. So yes, definitely possible, definitely happens. Anything to add to that, Nike or Kwa? So another question we got is post-secondary enrollment credits transfer to BARD. So where high school students can take courses at a university or community college. So we do allow students to bring in a certain number of credits in order to qualify as a first-year student. So yes, you can, but off the top of my head, I can't remember the credit limit before students become a transfer student. So it really depends on how you want to apply. If you want to be a traditional first year coming in with some credit, or if you want to be considered a transfer student and have even more credit. But I'll make sure you have our contact information, and I can put transfer students or folks who are interested in transferring credit in touch with our director of transfer admission, Greg Armbruster, and he can definitely answer those questions specifically. So the next question we got is, could a student have both a major and 2 minors? So we don't really have the traditional major minor structure at BARD. We have majors, and then we have concentrations, which are a lens that you look at your major through, essentially. So Kwa or Nike, do either of you want to maybe talk about your major and concentration combo and what that's like for you?
Yeah, and I also want to mention that the president of the college, Leon Faustine, also said, why minor in something that you love? So like, because you know, it's always going to be a part of your education, so you just would want to concentrate in it. So I'm looking at doing a concentration in Africana studies, because like a lot of like what I'm doing in my possible senior project does kind of like narrow into that. So when I'm probably going to have to actually like kind of somewhat moderate again in order to get it added on. But like, you know, I like it, and I think and a lot of students do. I know especially a lot of STEM students do a lot of like global public health is a really popular one within STEM. You know, it really there's a lot of really cool concentrations, and I definitely encourage you to look at the course list so you can kind of see all the breakdowns of like the concentrations, the classes, and a lot of the things that are cross-listed that BARD offers.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, for someone who is interested in maybe more than one concentration or more than 2 majors, you might want to look at doing an interdivisional program, interdisciplinary studies as your field. But our advising relationships at BARD are really important, and so your academic advisor is going to work with you on the best course of action in terms of how you want to approach you know, an interdisciplinary study. But there really is a ton of flexibility for you to sort of create your own program. So another question we got is, do we offer American Sign Language for foreign language credits? So unfortunately, we do have a sign language club on campus, but we don't have that as a part of the curriculum anymore. And that was just due to not having enough people to keep it going. We do accept American Sign Language as foreign language requirement for your application. And if you want to take sign language while you are with us, there are a couple of two-year institutions really close to our area that offer those classes. So you could potentially take classes there as well if you want to study that. That's a good question. Another question we got here is, does BARD take any sort of class credit for AP classes? Yes. You have to have a 5 on your AP exam and you will get credit for that. You'll get 4 credits per class. And alternatively, if you are in an IB program, if you score, I forget what the score is now on the IB exam. I think it's a 5, but that one's out of 7 if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, if you score high enough on the lower level IBs, you get 4 credits. And if you score high enough on the higher level IB classes, you actually get 8 credits. So we do offer credit for AP and IB classes. Are the film and theater programs interdisciplinary? Absolutely. Honestly, everything at BARD is interdisciplinary. So whether you're interested in acting in film, if you want to work in production, if you're interested in specifically the camera work or writing, and the same for theater, if you're interested in lighting design or sound or stage management or, you know, whatever it is, the way that you approach that is really up to you. Kwa, Nike, anything to add there?
I also want to highlight that you don't have to be just a film major to take film classes, and I think, and like, you don't have to be like just a like theater major to take theater classes. They are open to everybody.
Absolutely. Let's see. How easy is it to get involved in music if you're not a music major? Exactly the same as what Nike just said about film or about theater, photography. Honestly, anything you want to get involved in, there are ways to connect without it necessarily being your major. We have a variety of ensembles, whether that's vocal or instrument-based or a combination of the two. We have a really huge independent music scene on campus. There have been a lot of really amazing and pretty well-known bands come out of BARD. Steely Dan, for one. One of the members of the Beastie Boys was a BARD student. Power Bottom is a really successful one that I think they even have an album out on Spotify. So there's a really big music scene at BARD, and there are a lot of different ways to get involved in that. We also have a couple of student-run music venues on campus, 2 of those being Smog and the Root Cellar, where students can get involved and perform there. Other things to add on that note?
Yeah, we also have the community orchestra, which is open to all, BARD students, but also to like local communities for those who want to try out and be a part of that orchestra. And of course, all the buildings which have really good acoustics, like BARD Hall, and the music room, stuff like that, are open all 24/7 for students to go in there and perform, record, stuff like that. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and access to electronic music as well. If you're interested in doing work in studio, we have that available on our campus also. Just for clarification, someone's asking, do we say that all BARD classes are pass-fail except for the period for first years before the fall semester starts? So the opposite. The language and thinking program and citizen science specifically are pass-fail. All of the rest of our classes are graded in the traditional manner. So hopefully that clarifies that. So you really just have to show up and engage with the material for language and thinking and for citizen science in order to pass those. The only way you fail those is if you just don't show up. So yeah, everything else is graded traditionally. Thank you for clarifying that. How is BARD dealing with or planning to deal with pandemic in terms of campus life? That's a wonderful question. So we are at our time. Are we able to get to connect with folks who ask questions and answer these individually?
Yes, you will get a list of them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dan. So we'll reach out to you all for the questions that we weren't able to get to. Thank you so much for having us. It's wild when it flies by like that.
Perfect. Well, we want to thank BARD and all of our panelists here for a great panel. For everyone who did not get their questions answered, we will provide the team a list of your questions, and they'll follow up individually with you. When you close this window, you'll have a very quick 4-question survey if you wouldn't mind providing us a little bit of feedback. And then we have a few more sessions happening this evening if you want to check them out. And if you have any questions or you missed the beginning of this, you can check out strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL for all of the recordings as well. So thank you again to our students in Coldrick, and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.